right? So I choose a topic, I spend the week kind of looking at things on that topic, and then we just talk about it for the first hour of my streams every Saturday, right? This last week I slacked a little bit though, and I just wasn't really sure what to talk about, and then I realized, I could talk about VRChat, because I've talked about some other things like the channel and stuff like that, but I haven't really talked about VRChat. And considering how much time, I just realized something. We're on loop. Hold on. Let me fix the music really quick. The music is currently set to loop the same song over and over again. Order. Repeat. Oh wait, no, I need to switch that to default. Order default. Okay, perfect. Alright, and we'll just let this finish the song. Anyway, so yeah, I spend the first hour of my streams talking about something, and I figured let's talk about VRChat since I spend so much time in VRChat. I'm streaming in VRChat, and my videos and everything are done in VRChat, so might as well at least kind of talk about that a little bit. And so I guess the starting thing to talk about would be what is VRChat, and the very simple definition is it's essentially just a VR chat room, not limited just to VR. You can play VRChat on desktop, and a lot of people do. Funny story actually is a lot of avatar work as well as worlds that are uploaded to VRChat are done by desktop users, either because they can't afford or they just, whatever the reasoning behind it. It's entertaining when you meet somebody who has a really popular world and then you find out this whole time they've just been a desktop user, or they have popular avatars, and makes for very interesting conversations. But yeah, so VRChat is essentially, it's really simple as sort of a concept, really, because all of the models that you use in VRChat are made by the people who play VRChat. All of the worlds that are in VRChat are made by people who play VRChat. There are some pre-made avatars and some pre-made worlds, but they're a fraction of what is out there. And so it's really just, I don't even want to call it a game. There are sort of game activities you can do. Some people do make some maps that you can do, like PvP things or puzzle solving and that kind of stuff. But as a game, it's just a people create worlds and people upload avatars and people run around and just do whatever they feel like doing. So it's, yeah, I mean, VRChat is a VR chat room. That's the easiest way of describing it. And what is so, why do I spend so much time here versus any other game that I might play? And when I was younger, video games were a great way for me to be social. I never really considered myself to be an introvert, but realistically I am. I talk a lot, even outside of being at home and being on video games. I in school I hated awkward silences. I hated it when I was with some friends and everyone was just kind of there and no one really had anything to talk about. And so over time I kind of just would talk just to talk, right? And it kind of got me, I don't know if saying I got me in a lot of trouble is the right way to say it, but it's got me in a lot of situations where I'm pretty sure people just kind of think I'm stupid because, well, you have those awkward silences and I would just start talking about whatever and it's not related to anything. And it was just whatever happened to pop in my head at the time just came blurting out my mouth because I hated awkward silences. So sounds like I'm an extrovert, but I'm really not. And I think the best way to sort of describe an introvert versus an extrovert is your sort of social battery, and going out and doing things is fun, but I don't want to always be out doing things. And I hate when like there's those like sort of like spontaneous things where it's like, hey, we want to go out and do this, right? And it's like, oh, when you want to do it? I'm like, right now. And it's like, no, thank you. Like, yeah, I need things to be scheduled and like routine and like planned, and then it's like go out, do the thing, and then I want to come home, right? The whole recharging your social battery when you're at home. But through video games, that sort of became my social space. That became the area in which I would meet and connect with people, and that's sort of just grown and grown and grown over the years. And it's so cool to me being able to meet people from all over the world. I mean, one of my best friends right now lives in Latvia, and it's so cool being able to talk with him and well, for starters, learn about other cultures and learn about other places in the world. And VRChat is, instead of just like a video game, and like if you're playing a shooter, you can meet people and you can kind of like, but connecting with them, it's more, I feel like it's more about the game than it is about the social. Whereas in VRChat, it's just social. It's just go around, meet people, and talk. And that's sort of that's why I sort of like latched onto VRChat, because I don't play games to play games. I like to play games with friends. Single player games, no matter how good they are notoriously bad at keeping my attention. Even Skyrim, a game that I actually think is a lot of fun, I haven't even beat yet. I've had it for so long. I even purchased the VR version, so I have the game, and then I have the special edition. A special edition I got for free though, so that's whatever. And then I bought the VR version and paid full price for that. And I still haven't beat the game, right? And it's a fun game, and VR was really, but I still haven't beat it. I think of all the single player games, I can only think of like one off the top of my head that I've actually beat. I want to say that was Mass Effect. The point being though is, video games are fun to a certain point, but they're so much better to enjoy with people. So I can't stick to single player games for too long. I need that interaction. It's also actually the reason why I started streaming on Twitch, because I can talk with, and I can visit with, and I can have fun with my friends in a video game, but then Twitch is just another way to connect with people, and I really like that. But VRChat, yeah, it was sort of that. It's sort of that just on steroids. And there are things that you can do in VRChat. There are activities. There's like, again, puzzle worlds, PvP worlds, and then just your typical place like where we're at right now, which is just I don't even know what to call this place. I can't really call it an apartment, but it seems like it's like some kind of a tower of some sort. But it's just a chill, hangout, cozy place to be, and yeah, so this kind of, to tie this into sort of the next thing I wanted to say about VRChat is, if you think it sounds interesting, and you might want to get it, you'll want to understand some big caveats to VRChat. It's I don't know if unregulated is the right word to use, but VRChat is when you, well, let's walk through sort of what would happen if you first get the game and you've never played before. Okay, so you download VRChat, whether you're desktop or VR, it's irrelevant, but let's say you first download VRChat and you jump in the game. Well, when you first join, you'll be in what's called the hub world. It's just like the first place that it spawns you in, and you're just there by yourself. And there's a few teleporters to kind of like direct you to some other places if you want to go, right? But you'll find places using a menu, and you can start teleporting to different popular trendy worlds. But the really important thing to know for a new player on VRChat is there are three main categories of instance, right, that you can go into. The first is public, and when you first start playing, if you don't have any friends that play the game, you're going to be going into public worlds because, well, they're public. They're the worlds that are open for anyone to join, right? Public worlds are toxic. There's Friends Plus lobbies. Friends Plus lobbies are the lobbies where, like, you have a friend and they're playing with some other friends and you can join on, right? Basically, anyone who is friends of someone who's in that lobby can get into that lobby. Those lobbies are significantly better. Not to say that someone's friend of a friend might not join and be kind of weird and toxic and start doing really annoying things, but they're way more regulated. They're way more tame compared to the typical public world. And then there's invite lobbies. Invite lobbies get some funny they get a lot of funny rep tied to them, because that's the place where everyone jokes about where, like, ERPers go and stuff like that. But usually invite lobbies are just an instance that people create because they don't want a lot of people joining on them, or whatever the instance. Like, for example, I'm talking to you guys right now, I'm doing my little podcast thing, so I set my lobby to invite only, to limit, you know, just not to bother other people while we do our thing. And then after we're done talking, I'll jump in with friends or go start a Friends Plus lobby and, you know, see who we can hang out with and do things with. Wow, Francis joined our stream. Hello, Francis. But yeah, so when you first start playing, expect to jump in lobbies and expect to run into a lot of different categories of people, right? You're gonna get a lot of very sort of toxic people that are just running around doing stupid stuff, using avatars that blare loud sounds, or use lewd avatars. I would definitely say, if you're a parent, probably regulate what your kids do on this game, or don't let them play it at all, because you're gonna have a lot of people running around with, like, penis avatars or something stupid and yelling racist slurs, stuff like that, right? But your goal when you first start playing is basically to try and get into those Friend Plus lobbies. Start making some friends. All right, so if you go into a lobby and you meet a few cool people, friend them, right? Like, your goal when you first start playing is to try and make those good friends early on, so that you can start getting out of those public lobbies and start making friends with their friends, and start making friends with the friends of friends, and whatever, right? But that's kind of like the gist of the beginnings of VRChat. Not that everyone experiences it the same. I actually, when I first started streaming, one day I was like, I should do something different for today's stream. So I made a new VRChat account. So I have 2 accounts now, and I made that second account so that I could kind of experience what VRChat was like from a new player's perspective in 2022. Was it 2022 when I did this? Might have been 21, but VRChat had gone through a lot of changes since the last time I had played, and I thought that could be kind of a fun thing to do for a stream. And it actually turned out to be a totally cool and totally wholesome experience. Didn't run into, like, hardly any toxic people at all. This was shortly after the quest came out. That's part of the reason why I did it. And it was really interesting, to be honest. I kind of just jumped through some of the portals, getting connected to random public lobbies, met a ton of quest users being people who are using a quest, and they categorize them separately because they are limited on what they can see and where they can visit on VRChat, because the headset can't handle everything. But ran into a lot of these users and used a little, like, Pikachu looking model, and then we all changed into the model and we went to a bunch of places, and it was really wholesome and fun. And if that's your first experience when you start playing VRChat, amazing, right? But don't be surprised if you jump into some lobbies and run into very toxic experiences when you first start playing VRChat. That being said, though, there are things you can do to protect yourself. We'll talk about that in a minute. I wanted to talk a little bit more about sort of like the different types of players you can run into. So I mentioned that you can run into some very toxic people, but you can also, like, run into very wholesome people. Oh, and don't be very judgmental in VRChat when you run into, I guess, interesting looking avatars, right? Furries is an example. There's a lot of people who use furry avatars in this game. Don't judge them because of that. There's me, for example, I'm currently using a female model. I'm trying to get commissioned a good male model, but it's a very time extensive thing, so this is what I'm using for now. You'll get, again, you'll find lots of people using avatars that, aren't their gender, right? And there's a lot of different reasons for that, but it's more just you meet someone in VRChat. And one of the funniest stories actually that I've heard was this guy's first experience playing VRChat. He was running around, there's some meme stuff going on, whatever, and he goes over to his mirror, and there's a guy in full body just laying in front of the mirror, and he's in a very voluptuous female sexy model, right? And this is like a full-grown dude, deep voice, everything, right? Probably 30s, 40-year-old or something. And this guy's experience runs into him, realizes this is a dude, and he's like, what the heck, bro? Like, why are you using this avatar? And the guy just says, sometimes I want to feel sexy. It's like, sometimes I want to feel sexy too. So it's one of those things that you can do in VRChat, and it's just sort of normal. Let's see, other types of people that you're going to see, right? Let's see, we talked about the meme avatars. You'll find, like, you'll see a lot of people. Knuckles was a huge one for a while. It was rampant in VRChat. You still see it around pretty frequently. I can basically go, I don't know if I can probably go a day without running into a Knuckles now, but that might be cutting it close. You'll see Knuckles memes still pretty frequently. Hapus are all over the place. That's a pretty popular one. But jokes and memes is kind of like the foundation of VRChat. So if you want to be able to run around and just do stupid things and joke and do meme avatars and show off that kind of stuff, public worlds are probably like the place that you're going to want to be. Oh, club worlds. That's actually a huge... I didn't realize how big it was until I actually ran into some people and started hanging out with some people that were really into this. But there's a lot of people that do like these club worlds, and it's a whole community. Like, it's a whole thing. It's kind of crazy. Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, again, point is that you'll run into tons of nice people in all different types of groups. Just expect that from VRChat. But again, there are ways that you can kind of protect yourself in a lot of these situations, and you 100% should use these tactics. But the first one is your safety settings. So you've got, let me actually open it here so I can kind of look at it as I'm talking to kind of keep myself accurate, I guess. Shoot, I was assuming I can actually find it. Okay, so the first thing that I always tell people to do, this is, in my opinion, the most important, is you'll go into your menu and there's a performance setting, and avatars, based on all of the stuff that people put into their avatars when they're working on them, they get a rating, right? And if there's way too much crammed into an avatar, it'll be red, right? And the worst sort of offender are very poor avatars. Now, people who upload avatars in VRChat or models, or however you want to call it, they can pretty much put whatever they want on their models, right? They can just keep cramming stuff into this model until it's literally crashing everybody around them. And VRChat lets you do it, and VRChat lets you upload it. But if you don't want to be crashed by these people, if you don't want to have performance issues because of these people, I would recommend hiding very poor, right? So you can set it so that by default, VRChat won't show these very poor models. But on that same note, sort of like the whole, like, people can just keep cramming stuff in their models. Well, the more they do that, the larger their avatar download size is going to get. And you can go into your avatar's download size and you can limit that. By default, it's like 200 megabytes, which is a lot. That's a very big... like, there's VRChat worlds. Actually, I would say most VRChat worlds are smaller than 200 megabytes. So if someone's using a model that big, they are absolutely not optimizing their models at all, and they're just kind of oblivious, or they just don't care about people around them, essentially, right? So I would recommend turning that download size down. Somewhere between like 30 and 50 is usually a pretty good number, and that will also limit. Now, you can still see and talk to these people. It's just it won't download their avatars, and you'll see a default avatar instead. and your performance will be significantly better. But the other thing to keep in mind too is people who do like crashing avatars, or people who are using really toxic or annoying kinds of avatars. The people making these don't care about performance. They don't care about the people around them, and so those models are almost always very poor. They're almost always large download size models. So by simply doing those two things alone, you're already limiting that sort of toxic behavior to a minimal number, right? I mean, if you're strict enough with these settings, you could go to a public lobby that's completely capped, and basically the only real problem you're gonna have in those lobbies are just annoying, like, talking people, right? Like someone comes over and they're just like, you know, just start trolling you and being annoying that way, which comes into sort of another way that you can protect yourself, right? If someone comes up to you and they're being rude and obnoxious, or maybe yelling a bunch of racial slurs, block them. It's very easy. It's just open your menu, you'll get a pointer on your hand, you click on them, you block them, right? It's very important to do this because it makes your experience in VRChat a better one, but also people that do these kinds of things, there needs to be some way of punishing them, right? Especially if they're doing something like yelling racial slurs, for example. That's a very annoying one. But sort of like by blocking them, their rank goes down. Oh, I probably should mention there's a ranking system in the game. The longer you play, the more friends you have, and the more you contribute to the game, the higher your rank will go. But if you're doing a lot of negative and bad things, then your rank will go down instead. And especially newer players, like when you first start playing, you're going to be either a visitor or new user rank. And if you're doing toxic, annoying behaviors and just disrupting everyone around you, more and more people are going to block you. And if enough people do, you'll become a nuisance rank. Nuisance rank, I've seen it twice, only twice, back when they first added it. I haven't seen it since, which is surprising. You'd think I'd see it more, just for the amount of time that I've been on VRChat. But that nuisance rank basically blocks them for everyone, and it mutes them for everyone. So any lobby they go into they can't disrupt people around them, because their model isn't loaded for anyone and they can't talk to anyone, right? The only way they can talk to and show their avatar to anyone is if those people unmute them manually or unblock them manually. So absolutely, if somebody's being especially toxic, you need to mute them, block them, or hide their avatar or whatever. That being said, I've actually run into some problems with the muting people. So if someone is just like blasting annoying music or something through their microphone, or they're just saying rude, offensive things, if I click on them and mute them, unfortunately it puts a symbol above my head telling that person that I have them muted, which makes sense, because if they're trying to talk to me and they don't know that I have muted them, then it creates for an awkward situation. Okay. The problem with the game announcing that I have them muted is that, I probably muted them because they're being toxic, and because I muted them, they're going to retaliate and start trying to do things to, they're going to escalate, right? Or they're going to block me, which has the opposite effect, right? So I mute this person, they see that I muted them, so then they select me and they block me, and now my rank could be affected because they were being toxic, right? And so they decided to block me instead. So in most situations, like if somebody is just playing some music through their microphone, you can usually mute them and they won't get offended because they understand. But if they're being toxic, most of the time it's just better to block them, right? Because once you've blocked them, they can't block you in return easily. Like, it is technically possible, but you have to go through the website and you need to know their username, and then you have to actually find the correct account. So it's most of the time it's like, this person is not someone I want to interact with, let's block them and move on with our life. I kind of wish more people would see it that way. I have a few people that I know who kind of just, they friend everyone, and if someone's really toxic, they just are like, it's fine, that's what they want to do. And sometimes you'll be in a lobby with friends and you're all hanging out having a good time, and then this really toxic person joins and they kind of ruin the experience for everyone. But if people had more of that mentality of, it's like, wow, this guy's really annoying, I'm gonna block him, people would probably catch on. Like, they would start to realize, oh, acting like this gets me blocked by everyone, right? Maybe I should be more human. Let's see. So ways to protect yourself. That's what we were talking about, right? So blocking people, managing your safety settings. Oh, and then we talked about this a little already, but just knowing where you're going. Hanging out in public lobbies is obviously going to be a crazy toxic environment. So just know that when you are hanging out in public lobbies, you're essentially putting yourself at risk. Oh, but then knowledge is a big one. So if I open up to explore all the different worlds in VRChat, you kind of learn from experience. You'll learn kind of what lobbies are the toxic lobbies versus what lobbies are the ones that are going to be more chill, right? Like there's this lobby called the Black Cat. It's based off of a bar. It's compatible for every player that plays the game. So PC users, VR users, desktop users, Quest users, everyone has the ability to get into this lobby. And so you get a lot of squeakers, a lot of like kids running around doing stupid things. So when I go to that lobby, I expect that. That's the kind of things I expect, right? This other really popular world here called the Room of Rain oftentimes is quite a bit better. It's literally just a platform with like a mirror and a video player, and it's just a comfy chill hangout spot, and it's raining, right? Now this lobby is still compatible, so anyone can join. So it's not like you're still gonna get anyone joining this lobby, and it could potentially get weird. But then chill lobbies oftentimes are some of the better ones. So you got a lot of lobbies like movies and chill, or hang out and chill, or chill and sleep, right? These lobbies are not the types of lobbies that, toxic player is going to want to hang out in, because it doesn't sound like a fun place to hang out in. So these lobbies are quite a bit better. And then sort of the piece de la resistance for chill, hangout, not toxic lobbies, mute lobbies, right? Because you go to a lobby that's literally the name of this place is mute. You're going to be seeing basically everyone that's there is going to be mute, right? They're going there because there's probably like a keyboard in the world so they can type, or there's gonna be a bunch of pins, right? Or whatever. And so you get a lot of these people who either aren't comfortable speaking, don't want to speak, whatever the reason is that they're not talking. Maybe they have a broken microphone, right? They come there to hang out, and toxic players, they're essentially bullies. And what fun is it to bully somebody that isn't going to react? What fun is it to bully someone that's just going to not say anything or retaliate, right? So these lobbies are almost always very chill, very nice places to hang out. And again, you would expect it. Oh, I mean, what fun is it to go to a place where no one's talking? It's not like you're not allowed to talk, and you still find plenty of people who are talking. It's just not nearly as it's not like, a lobby of 50 people trying to talk over each other. Oh, that's actually another thing to keep in mind. When you are hanging out in these public lobbies and it's very loud and there's all this stuff going on, they added something recently which is amazing. Oh, I pressed the wrong button there. And it's called earmuff. This is pretty new, so even people who have been playing for a little while might not know about this. But you go into your settings, and I scroll down to... Oh, actually, where is it? I thought it was right here. Oh, not settings. There's a microphone and audio box, and under your microphone, there's a spot where it's called earmuff. And you can change the distance at which it enables the earmuff. Basically, with earmuff mode turned on, it starts turning down the audio of others around you at a set distance, right? Which by default is probably like a couple meters or something. I set it to 0, so the further someone is away from me, the quieter their microphone gets to me, right? And then also, I think my range right now is set to like 10 meters. Usually I have it on 8. But basically anyone further than 8 meters from me, I can't hear. And if somebody is within that 8 meters, say 7 meters from me, I can hear them, but they're quiet, right? And when you go into these public lobbies, I'll turn this down to like 3 meters, right? Which is, it basically just creates a circle right around me where I can hear, and everyone outside that circle I can't hear. It's honestly amazing. Getting that earmuff mode thing added to VRChat is one of my favorite things now for VRChat. I can go to like the Pug, which is usually got tons of people, especially in that main lobby area, and I could be sitting there with 3 or 4 of my friends, and we could be hanging out talking, and there could be another group right next to us, and we're like not bothering each other at all. We can just hang out there, we can talk, we can have a good time, and then when people want to talk to you, they'll walk closer, right? They'll get within that 3 or 4 meters, and they'll, you know, come and talk and whatever. And it's for comfort and for just an experience on playing VRChat. It's huge. Use earmuff mode. I love it. Like I use it always, basically. Like I said, I leave it turned on and I set my distance to 0, but then I just change my fall off range to larger or smaller depending on where I am. And makes the game so much better for just being able to talk comfortably with people. I love it. Oh, Revenant's joined our stream. Hey Revenant, how's it going? He's lurking. Let's see. Okay, so since we kind of talked about ways of like protecting yourself in VRChat and sort of trying to adjust my headset real quick. My cable keeps falling down my back. It's really annoying. Get this thing straightened out here. There we go, much better. Okay, so we talked a little bit about kind of protecting yourself from things that can happen in VRChat, whether it be crashers or toxic players or whatever. We should probably talk about some of the things that you should do and things that like you shouldn't be doing in VRChat. I think it's kind of obvious, but being a toxic player is something that will get you a nuisance rank. Coming into VRChat, running around, yelling stupid things at people, and just being a jerk, they're just gonna mute you, hide you, and or block you, right? And those kinds of things will get you nuisance rank real fast, and you won't be able to sort of experience VRChat for what it can be once that happens. Not to mention you're just a dick. For honestly, running around doing toxic things just makes you a dick. But so that's kind of a given. Another one is don't categorize, or I shouldn't say don't categorize people, but don't judge people too harshly because of who they hang out with or like the types of avatars they use. Like furry avatars have this whole sort of history that goes behind them, and they have this whole like, I don't want to say, what's the word I'm going for here? They get pretty harshly judged is the point that I'm trying to make. But all of the furry communities that I have met in VRChat so far, it's hard for me to find furries that aren't nice people. Of everyone that I interact with in VRChat, I swear that furries are the nicest of the bunch, right? And hanging out with them has honestly been nothing but a joy for me. I even go to the furry conventions that they host here in VRChat. The next one's actually coming up, I think, next month, which is bad because I was going to work on an avatar for it and I'm falling way behind. Yeah, I want to say it's February. Yeah, it's January right now. I'm pretty excited for that. But yeah, no, that whole community again has been nothing but like a great community for me to interact with and hang out with, and they're one of my, to be totally honest, if I had unlimited funds, I'd probably have a furry model made just so that when I'm hanging out with them I have something to kind of fit in a little bit better. Hopus is another one. That's actually a community that I don't think anyone really judges too harshly, but that whole community has been like, they're so wholesome. Like, of everyone I've met in VRChat, the whole Hopu like communities, I say communities because I know of 3 different groups that do Hopu related things, and like they do raids, which in VRChat a raid is basically you and a bunch of friends, or you and a whole group of people get into the same model, and then you jump into different lobbies, whether it's your friends' lobbies or public lobbies, and you kind of just run around in these models, and people are like, what's going on? Everyone's using, and it could be a funny or a joke avatar, or it might be something different, but it's raids can be very toxic, but the Hapus do raids, and they do like the most wholesome raids I've ever seen. They all use these Hapu avatars, which have really big eyes and big pupils, right? And I swear they don't blink, but they'll all be in these models. They'll jump into like a public lobby, public instance, and they will find somebody, and everyone will swarm this person, and they'll just not like get like right up on top of them, but they'll just kind of stay within viewing distance of this person and just like essentially form a circle, and then they just stare at you, and then they follow you around, and it's so funny. And they do this all the time. I don't know if they do it daily, but they do this all the time, and they'll just follow someone around for a long time, and then eventually they'll drop a portal to their Hapu world and try and see if the person will go through it. And if the person does go through the portal, all the Hapus go with them, and then they kind of then they'll talk, right? They won't talk until this point, but then they'll be like, oh hey, we're the Hapu Foundation, or the Hapu Empire, or the Hapu whatever group they are. We have so much fun just running around doing these raids and finding people to interact with. If you'd like to join us, we have a Discord, and they have and then they do it again. They go find another instance, and it's pretty fun. It's pretty fun being part of it too. Oftentimes they have a Discord going at the same time too, so they'll be in a Discord call together, talking in the call, but not talking in the game. And yeah, they're super wholesome and super accepting as well. Basically anyone can join them. And that's okay. So what we were talking about again, do's and don'ts. So like, yeah, don't get too judgment. Oh, I guess another sort of related thing to that is some of the best people that I know are also like the most accepting people I've ever met. I mentioned that I have a friend who lives in Latvia, and he it's been pretty cool learning about like his culture and all that stuff, but he's also one of the what's the word I'm going for? Accepting. He's one of the most accepting people I've ever met. Like he will friend anyone and everyone, and not only will he friend anyone and everyone, but like when someone's being toxic, he doesn't really judge them for it, because he's just like, you don't really know what they're going through. There might be a reason why they're doing that, and it's just like, honestly, one of the most wholesome things I've ever seen. I wish I could be more like that, but it gets under my skin a little bit too much when people are being rude and toxic to those around them and not paying attention to their environment. So I get too. Well, I mean, we just saw a whole thing talking about protecting yourself from toxic people in VRChat. So I think it's safe to say you have a general idea of my stance on people who are rude. Actually, speaking about being rude, probably another don't of VRChat is don't lie. Like, it's kind of just a bad thing to do to begin with. But VRChat is one of these places where, like, if you need some attention, just ask for it, honestly. Like, you find so many people just hanging out in these chill worlds, just sitting in front of a mirror, and people will cuddle and head pat and boop each other and whatever. It's like, if you need attention, you can find people that will give you attention, and you don't have to lie and pretend to be something that you're not in order to get it. You can honestly, I wonder if I should try that. Maybe I should, after today's like podcast, maybe I should go to a public instance and see how hard it is to get someone to give me head pats. But people, the reason why I say it's really important to kind of like, I guess be yourself isn't necessarily what I'm trying to say. If you want to use a specific character in VRChat and have like a specific personality and like treat it like a game, and that's fine, but I think it's probably safe to say that you will want to be relatively upfront with that. Don't go around saying that you've got personality disorder, or telling people that just making up stuff. Don't go around being like, oh, I'm a trans, when in reality you're just doing it for attention. That kind of stuff, you're gonna run into a couple of big problems. The first is it's VRChat, and I look at it like a social environment where you can come and hang out and talk with people. To me, it's not much of a game, but it is, at the core, it's still just a game, and people in here can be as anonymous as they want, and meaning that they're going to treat you like crap for things that you do. And people like, so if you go around telling people that you are gay or lesbian or trans, or you have multiple personality disorder or whatever, and your people are going to judge you for it 100%. Like, and I'm not saying it's right, but it's there's no filter. It's true with just about any video game you play. It's true with just about anything you do online, more or less. Like, you need to be careful and protect yourself from that. But I guess my point is that, I'm like, I mean, if that stuff is true for you, that's fine, that's great. I support your decision, but attention whoring is basically what I'm saying. Is just don't come in here and try and attention whore and try and, like, you'll see that a lot with I said squeakers before, but like young kids who probably shouldn't be playing this game, but you see it a lot with them, where like they have this whole story, like, and they go on and they won't shut up about, like, the multiple personality disorder one was actually something I saw a lot for a little while. And going around saying this stuff and making up these stories honestly detracts from, like, the people who might actually have one of these problems, or might actually like have some kind of medical condition, or might actually be going through one of these things. And it's really frowned upon. I mean, just in the community in general, but in VRChat, it's one of those places where you can be accepted for those kinds of things, whether you have a condition or whether you're going through some kind of an experience. VRChat's one of the places where a lot of these people flock, because you can be and do whatever you want here. And when people go around lying about this stuff and quote unquote attention whoring for this kind of stuff, it makes for it can split people, right? It can cause people to judge more harshly the people who are actually going through these things, and it really sucks, right? So don't come in here and try to attention whore is basically what I'm saying. If you're in here and you're hanging out and you're looking for friends, go look for friends. Like, they're not hard to find. And if you just need attention, again, like I was saying in the beginning, try and find good, wholesome people to hang out with. Start becoming friends with any of these people, and before you know it, you'll be part of a group of people that are chill. Mirror dwellers is actually sort of the group, quote unquote, the group that I more or less identify with. I love going to a world. There's actually a mirror right here behind me. It's not on right now, but like, I will come to a place and I'll just hang out in front of a mirror. And mirror dwelling's sort of a joke, because people just come and they sit in a world and they just sit in front of a mirror and they look at each other and at themselves, and the joke is that they're vain. They love themselves so much they want to look at themselves in a mirror. But realistically, the reason why mirror dwelling is so great is because I treat it like a chat room, right? And when people are just hanging out as a group together, just for example, looking at a mirror, then it's what's the word? It engages conversation. It not enhances conversation. It gets people to talk, right? And so when you're just hanging out, whereas if you were in like an exploration world, people are going to be running around doing all kinds of things, and they're getting all separated. And at that point, it's just it's just a video game, and you're running around doing tasks and activities that don't mean anything. Whereas to me, it means way more to be hanging out with people and having conversations and talking and having a good time there. So I quote unquote identify as a mirror dweller in VRChat, as it were. Yeah, I forgot where I was going with that. We were talking about the do's and don'ts. Yeah. Anyway, well, I might have just gone on a tangent there. Of course, that's the whole reason I kind of started doing this segment of my streams, is because I can ramble and ramble and ramble and talk and talk and talk. And yeah, a lot of times I go on tangents and start talking about things that are like unrelated, I guess. Francis put a frowny face. I didn't even notice you put a frowny face in my chat. What's that about? Oh, I saw my camera sitting behind me. I thought someone was walking behind me. I was like, who's that? But yeah, so what is VRChat? It's essentially just a VR chat room. Desktop users can come and hang out here as well. How did I become introduced to VRChat? Oh, actually, I forgot to mention this. So I kind of talked about what VRChat is to me, but I forgot to mention sort of how I found it. And this is really interesting, because I have a bunch of VR games, but VR, my brother actually got VR. and he was up visiting some family in another state, and I talked to him, I don't know, it was a phone call or something, probably in Discord actually, and he was like, hey, have you ever thought about getting VR? And my whole experience with VR up to this point was Google Cardboard, which was kind of cool, right? Being able to put this thing on and you put your phone in it and you can like look around and it's like, whoa, right? And that was it. To me, that was all VR was. And he got home and he was like, I bought one. He actually bought VR while he was in another state, had it shipped to his house, and it showed up like, I think it actually showed up the day they got back, maybe. But basically he was setting up VR the day he got back, because he tried VR at our cousin's house and he thought it was so cool that he bought it. And he was like, you want to come over and try it? And I was like, oh, okay, sure, right? So I went over and tried it, and it was so much better. Like, Google Cardboard is like a cool gimmicky thing, but he had the Oculus CV1, which is the first Oculus, and it was really cool. It was a lot of fun. I was like, I kind of want to get this, so I started looking into it myself, and decided that for me, because I was living on my own, it would be better to get the Vive because it supports a larger play space, as opposed to the Oculus at the time. And I was like, I have all this space I'm not using. I can literally set up my VR in my living room and have my whole living room to use VR. And yeah, eventually bought the Vive, set it up just like I was saying, and played a few different games, and it was a lot of fun playing the different games that I was trying. But me, my brother, and another friend that we had who also had VR, found this game VRChat, and I think my brother actually found it first. He's like, you want to play this? And it was free, and I was like, I mean, it's free, why not, right? Jumped in, did a lot of the same typical stuff that you see everyone doing in VRChat, which is essentially just running around, you know, exploring, doing stupid things and trying out avatars and seeing all the different effects that they can do. And that's sort of how I first got into VRChat, was just downloading it off of a whim from my brother. And then it escalated. So VRChat doesn't have like goals per se, right? So when you're playing, it's you can run around and do whatever you want wherever, but there's no real progression system. So the progression system in VRChat has actually become like more advanced than like another game, in the sense that a video game, it's like there are goals and objectives and unlockables. But in VRChat, those unlockables are things that you create, right? So when you first start playing, you'll run around exploring, and eventually, you know, you'll find cool avatars, but they're all created by other people, and then you might want to try and do that yourself. So you go online and you find some free modeling assets. You throw them in Unity and you upload some trash avatar to your account, and you probably screw it up and it takes you a while, but then you get better at it, and next thing you know, you've got a whole model that either you pieced together, or maybe a model you purchased off of a website like Booth or Gumroad. And that's sort of the progression system of VRChat. And it means kind of so much more, because it's not like in-game content in the sense that, oh, it's the stuff that the developers put in the game that you can unlock by purchasing or by unlocking, or earning, I guess is what I meant to say. But it's stuff that you do outside the game on your own that you know, then kind of, I don't know, it's really cool being able to create something and learning something like Unity or Blender, and then putting it in game and experiencing it and like firsthand. It's really cool. But that's kind of how I got started in VRChat, and I've been here ever since. I don't play as much as some hardcore players, but I play VRChat very steadily. I think I'm almost at 5,000 hours now. So it was amazing to me actually how fast my hours on this game grew. My most played game, I think, was Arma at the time when I got it. I had like 2,500 hours on Arma. And then the next thing, one day I was just looking at my Steam library, and there's this thing called OVR Toolkit, which is a thing that you can put on your hand that allows you to look at your desktop while in VR easier. and I was looking at Steam, and it was like, OVR Toolkit, you have 3,100 hours, and I was like, I have 3,100 hours on OVR Toolkit, which isn't VRChat. That's just OVR Toolkit. That's just a thing that I use in the game. And I was like, if I have more hours on that than I have on Arma, and I thought 2,500 hours was a ton, and I looked at VRChat and I was at like 35 or 38 or something, and I was just like, oh god, like I'm pushing way more hours on this than I expected. But yeah, I guess kind of to summarize, well, I guess we kind of were summarizing already kind of what VRChat is, do's and don'ts, ways that you can protect yourself, and then like how you can actually have a good experience when on here, because VRChat isn't just a game. It's a I almost said social experiment. It's not a social experiment. It's a it's just it's a chat room where you can come and hang out with your people, but it's so much more than that. And if you treat it that way, if you come into this looking for friends and trying to get into some, then you're gonna have a really good wholesome time here. But yeah, I think that's just about everything. I mean, I can talk about VRChat. There's so much stuff. Like this is just sort of, I wanted to do this. I wanted to talk about this more just to kind of explain what it is for people who might not know. Since I was thinking about making this segment of my stream sort of a podcast, people who are only listening to this, they don't see that I'm using this model. So people who might stumble across this podcast and not see the videos or not see my streams or not even know about VRChat, I was kind of thinking this podcast might be interesting for them. But yeah, I mean, we've just about covered an hour, so I guess we're done talking about this. Wonder what we should talk about next week. I could probably do a whole segment just talking about model making and avatars in VRChat, or world creation. Well, I don't know, maybe not world creation. World creation in VRChat's a sensitive subject for me. I kind of hate doing that because people when they're in a lobby, there could be 80 people in that lobby, and people will be like, oh man, this lobby is so laggy, right? Or they'll say this world is laggy or something, and it always kind of like, they might not mean it this way, but it always comes across as like, oh, it's the world's fault, when in reality there's 80 people in this lobby and most of them are using really crappy avatars, so it's like, of course it's laggy, but it's not the world's fault. So world creation is kind of an unforgiving thing, where if you do make a really good popular world, you're still going to be running into a lot of people who are dissing on it or saying, oh, the lighting here sucks, or because there's so many opinions on that stuff, and people are brutal when they talk about worlds. As opposed to avatars, I can make an avatar, it can be very poor, but if it's got a cool effect on it, people just like, yeah, it's fine. People don't like to offend people by talking about their avatar, but they absolutely will with worlds, largely because I don't think there's a disconnect, right? People don't understand, oh, someone made this world and they could be in my instance right now, so they kind of just start dogging on the world like you're playing any other video game. It's just like, wow, this map sucks, right? Kind of the same thing with VRChat. People be like, oh, this map sucks, and it's just like, you realize the guy that made this map is sitting right there next to you, right? Like, they put a lot of effort into this place, and you're just gonna, this place sucks, like. Yeah, and then, there's a whole constructive criticism thing too, because a lot of people will just be like, oh, well, it's just constructive criticism, their lighting sucks, right, or whatever, and but they won't do it with avatars. Well, I mean, I will, and some people will to a certain degree, but it's just far more common with world making, which makes me really bitter towards it. It's not as rewarding as working on models. Anyway, I'm rambling again, so we'll call this good for the podcast section, or the talking, the ramblings of Kegan section of my stream. But yeah, you can, I'll upload this video to YouTube, so if you want to go through and watch all the stupid things that I talk about, and yeah, if you're watching this on YouTube and you don't watch me on Twitch, I stream every Saturday from noon to 6 my time, but whatever time that is for you. Anyway, thanks for listening. Let's find something to get ourselves up to.